What up, YouTube? Digital. I'm gonna back this one up here.
To the point I'm like, I'm sick.
Okay. This is from the Stone Cold Steve Austin show, and he's interviewing Josh Barnett. And if you don't know who Josh Barnett is, he's a legit fighter. Yes, Stone Cold is a wrestler, but I dare you to go put a finger in his face. But anywho, Josh Barnett's a legit, and he's actually got a pretty fucking good record, even though he's had his fucking issues. He's got a pretty legit record. I mean, these guys don't fight, one time a year anymore. They fight a lot more often, and to be 38-6 or something professionally is pretty fucking good. And especially when only 2 or 3 knockouts. That's pretty fucking good. So, and that's overseas and everything. So, yeah, he's legit. I wouldn't fuck with him. No.
This shit. So I stand and I put my elbows out. I'm standing there and she's in front of me and I make.
Oh, he's at an Anthrax concert with a girl, and people are pushing by, and when they are, they're kind of, yeah.
Make sure that if you try to go cut through where they were going, they have to go around. Just be polite. People bump into me a little bit. They got there. They got the under. They try to push, and no, you ain't getting there. Sorry, ain't happening. And some guy keeps trying to push through. Can't get it. And finally goes around the other side. And he starts jaw-jacking at me. Hey man, I said I was doing. And I go, hey man, you see, there's a girl right here. I'm sitting here. You can just go some other direction. Yeah, well, I'm just trying to get. I go, man, I can't. I said, excuse me, I can't fucking hear you. Anthrax is playing. Plus, I don't want to pay attention to you when they're playing, Time up on stage, or I Am the Law. Fuck off. So he starts getting all. I'm like, why don't you just keep moving along? He gives me this sideways look and starts getting huffy. I look at him and I start smiling and I go, come on, go ahead. Start talking to him like he's a little kid. Move on, go ahead, move along there. He's like, you want to? I go, what do you want to do about it? Why don't you just you got by?
The first thing is to get in someone's head. It's so easy and so fun. Why can I troll someone like Ron? People don't realize that I was asked by someone close to him to not troll him anymore because he was so fucking whatever. Yeah. And I knew it because he would never drop my name, but he would drop what I say. And I was the only one saying it because I knew how to get in his head. And so I stopped trolling him. He's an idiot. And I don't want him doing something stupid and then be that person. I don't want that. I don't need that shit. I don't want that on me. But anywho. So rule number 1. Get in their head. Now, I had a Craigslist guy get pissed off and come over and threaten to kill us all where we used to live in California over a transmission that they installed wrong and blew. And it was a $2,000 transmission that was just rebuilt that I sold for $300 because I wanted to be fair, and I offered no warranty or anything else because the transmissions are way too easy to blow. And even though this had Kevlar and all this other bullshit in it, and I know the builder is one of the best in NorCal. So it was not built wrong, it was not abused or anything else. And he called and threatened me and everything else, and finally I just started laughing at him. And I just laugh until, and then I just hang up, and then he called again, and I'm just laughing. I got kind of an evil kind of cackle. And when I get to that point, it's on. It's on. And I told him, bring your ass over. And he's talking about bringing truckloads and shit, and I'm like, dude, you don't understand, bring it. And my wife kind of made me call the cops, and I did because I knew that he was starting to do things, and he threatened the family and everything else, and I'm like, okay, I'll call. I'll do it for protection, not from him, but from a law standpoint. So I called. The two cops that came up, they were all like hiding behind trees and shit. And I turned on my big old spotlight that shined down on them, and I stepped out so they can see me. And I'm like, you know who the fuck I am? And the cop who was there, we were cool. And I'm like, look, man, you need to tell him. You know me. You need to go over there and tell him. You don't need to come here. And he goes, yeah, that probably wouldn't be too good. And he goes, okay. So I didn't, he never called me again, everything else. And I said, if he wants to take me to court, I'm cool with that. You can give him my information. I'm cool. He can take me to court. I'm fine with that. I'll win. But anyway, tell him don't come over here. It'll be the stupidest mistake he ever made in his life. Especially when he's a convicted woman beater. And he looked at me and he smiled, and I said, don't worry, I'll do what you can. And I saw the guy 2 weeks later at there's only like 2 gas stations up in where we were up in the mountains, and he walks in, and the guy is like way smaller than I am. I mean, the guy is like, 5'5", maybe $145 at the most. And I look over at him and I said, wait a minute. And I just sat there and I'm like, that motherfucker. And he looked at me and he goes, oh shit. And he fucking turned around, got back in the car and took off. And the lady at the check stand, she's like, what the fuck? She goes, I've never seen him do that. And I'm like, yeah, well, he threatened to kill me. And she goes, oh. I was like, yeah. So, never saw him again after that. But, that guy was a bitch.
Well, hey, do your thing. Move along, buddy. He's like, and he starts looking at me crazy and all this, and I'm like, I just started laughing.
You know.
And at some point, I guess he was trying to like make a fist, and the girl reaches out and she grabs a hold of him. She goes, you really don't want to do that. And he's looking at me, and I'm eyeballing him. I'm just laughing. I'm smiling. I just nod over to the other side of the, like, go ahead, move along now. And he just fucking tucks up his shit and keeps going.
That's a motherfucker right there on his end.
Yeah, and I'm just laughing the whole time. Like, huh, really? Do you want to get into it? You know, I don't really have a problem. So if that's what you want to do, let me move her off to the side. I'm going to fuck you up.
Okay, but what's the liability on that? I mean,
there's a lot of liability, I'm sure, but I'm not the kind of person that can just sit back and be disrespected.
That being said, with the liability that comes along with it, and you're a pretty goddamn nice guy in person. Now once the bell rings or whatever happens, and obviously the war zone that you go to is a whole different ballgame, but to say something like that goes down, I mean, you got a cat, no skills.
Or who knows what.
Or who knows.
Most of the time they don't.
I mean, that would be...
Most of the time they don't have no skills, but they have a friend. So you always, if you're out in these things, you kind of watch the group. You know, you watch where people go back and forth. I always do. I'm scanning people. People don't know. I say this all the time. The best thing you can start doing is using your fucking eyes. You start watching people. And, you start watching like, okay, that guy's going to get a beer. And you just walk back to see who he's walking back with. Okay, how many of them are talking to each other? Okay, that's his group. And, you scan it. Always. Every day.
Part of my defense is, man, I don't know this guy from Adam. I don't know anything about this dude. I don't know what
He does have a good defense because I've used that before. But anyways,
I look back and I'm like, that ain't enough. That's it. They don't want none.
Right.
Or telling a guy, you don't know
Yeah.
anybody that knows anybody that knows anybody that knows anybody that can kick my ass. So I don't know who the hell you're gonna call. You're fucked. You know. So you look a guy in his face, and when it's just like, let's do it, man. Let's go. This is. I'm glad you asked. They're done. They don't want anything to do with it. They don't want any part of being in a fight. People want to pick on people or fight people. Those that they think that they can win or aren't going to be too much trouble. And they see a guy that just that's more than willing and happy to do so. They're like, yeah, forget it. It's not worth it. I would have kicked his ass. So.
But just let's do, some of the things that you were laying down over the last, minute and a half.
now that is totally fucking true. And I will keep uploading examples as my life continues. I've already uploaded 3. The guy what you took a photograph of, that one still makes me laugh. The motorcycle guy, the one that I was pissed off because what he did. And again, I love motorcycles. I love it. I would be just pissed at myself to the point that you wouldn't understand if I hit a motorcyclist because of my fault. It would fuck me up. But at the counterpart, when you're a motorcyclist, you gotta fucking don't cross 2 double yellows, jump 3 lanes, and here I am, I'm moving over to give this guy room so he can do whatever, go. I know you're gonna speed, even though I wish you wouldn't, but anywho, he did what he did, and when he was going by, I put my arm out the fucking window and gave him a big fuck you. And there wasn't that much distance between me, him, and a K-rail. So there's absolutely no way in hell he did not see me put my finger out that goddamn window. And that's why we thought he was pulling down his pants in front of us because I flipped him off. But I figured at least he would stop. I've been itching for a fight. So I've been purposely doing it. The Asian kid kind of was throwing a gang sign up at me when he gave me a dirty look. Fuck you. Reach in front of my wife and, right up to the window. Fuck you. Never in my life have I backed down. Because I've already been beat. And that's what the thing is once you've been beat, you start losing all that being scared shit. And yeah, can this guy beat my ass? Oh fuck yeah, I wouldn't fuck with him. But if I was to get in a fight with him and beat his ass, I'd get up and shake his hand. Alright, fuck you, got me. Hey, it's what it is. Not many people have. I learned. I learned because of losing my temper. That's when I learned a lot about fighting. Is when I was in a dark time that that my father put me. And there was a time where he got his ass whooped by me when I was 14. And I use I call it a tactical advantage called a brick. Yeah, there's no rules in the street. The guy is bigger than me. I gotta do something. And he was gonna fucking beat the shit out of me. And you gotta understand, my father was beating me like a person, okay, when I was a child. The first time he punched me was when I was like 2 or 3. Why I have a high tolerance for pain is because I learned to deal with it. Pain is an emotion that you can turn on and off. Sometimes it's hard. And you got to get down really to a basement level to learn how to do it. But you can. But the problem is when you turn it off, you got to replace it with something else. So you got to replace it with something you shouldn't. And most of the time it's anger. That's why lately I've been a little short with people. But I don't fucking care. Now, I met someone like, shit, I forgot. The fuck's burning? I don't know. Oh, and my dad got he during that fight I used a brick. I bricked him just to knock him goofy for a second, where I could get up and do kind of like it's kind of like how Krav Maga does that whole body push. When you do it, you lift, and so you're throwing them off balance and everything else. And then I was instantly on him, and I was Bushwick Bill punching the shit out of him until I broke pretty much both my hands. And that's when I went to the point of choking him. And that's when my uncle hit me with a 2x4. It was cool. It was awesome. Great family reunion. Thank you, Judge. Legal system's great sometimes. My dad followed the emergency. We finally worked 13 years to finally get this fucker out of my life. And then a judge breaks it when my dad files an emergency custody hearing, and then he gives back visitation. And that first weekend started bad. And I called up the counselor that the court ordered me to, because I needed a ride home. I was, up in a mountain kind of, and I needed to get back down in the valley. So I called the counselor lady because I knew she was cool. And she gave me a ride home and gave me a ride to a hospital and basically busted up a couple hands, a couple of my fingers and shit like that. And I had a couple lacerations. But my father went to the hospital. And when there was an emergency court hearing on this was over the weekend. This was Friday. And then on Monday there was a court hearing, and when I walked into court I couldn't stop laughing because I saw my dad, shaved head, lacerations all sewed up all over his head. His eyes were just fucking completely black, and his neck was black and blue, and everything else. And I looked at him and I said, "Fuck you, bitch. You ain't shit." And when the judge came in, that was the fucking best part, because he came in and he was, fucking neatening up his robe, and he looked over and he saw my dad and he's like, "Holy shit." And he just stopped. And then he looked over at me and he's like, "Oh, fuck." And he told the lady to strike those calls. We sat down and he goes, I'm not even going to go here. You're never going to have any custody or anything else. He never has to go there again. Because obviously, if he kicked your ass, then you pushed him. Fuck you, boom, done. It's fucking awesome. He wouldn't even leave the courtroom until after I left. And after I was like out and gone. He wouldn't leave the courtroom. And I haven't talked to him in 20-something years. Even though there's been 2 times I've ran into him. One of them I was picking up an engine for my Grand Prix, and I was walking down. My stepdad dropped off the motor, and I was walking down a row of shops. I didn't know what shop it was the machine shop, and I was walking, okay, that's not it, okay, that's not it. And I walked by one, and it was a mechanic one. I just kind of looked a little longer, and I saw him, and I'm like, I kept, okay, that's not it. And I kept walking, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I backed up, and I kind of looked back in there, and I'm like, motherfucker. And then I got my motor, and I said, you know that fucker over there? He goes, yeah. And I said, tell him his son says, hello. How's his head? And he came kind of out. He knew it was me. And he didn't want any. My stepdad tried at one point to be dad when I was about 14, 15 or whatever. He tried to teach me a lesson, and that didn't go over too well for him because he's 5'8" or something, but he's a $150 at the most. And I mean, he's fast, but he didn't have it. He didn't have what it took to overcome the anger that I had. And when back then you pushed me in a corner, it was really bad. So that's when I learned that most people don't want to fight. They'll talk shit, but they won't. When you think you need a gun, most of the time, you don't. So far, I've never needed a gun, and I'd rather choke somebody to death we won't go there than to shoot them. Take satisfaction out. That's just me. And yes, I have put a gun to somebody. Matter of fact, I'll do a video on that one. Peace.